speaking of the housing crisis and the housing problems in this country, one of the quote-unquote solutions that the Conservative government were floating is essentially a plan to criminalise homeless people, because the Conservative Party are just basically evil at this point. It's basically evil, like, don't know how else you can describe somebody who wants to criminalise the homeless. And Sunak is now apparently so draconian, so completely devoid of humanity on trying to push through criminalising the homeless, that people on both sides of his party are potentially going to rebel over this particular bill, which is good. I'm glad people in his own party are finally standing up to some of the right-wing policy and not just some of the left-wing policy. Anyway, let's read on. Dozens of Tory MPs on the party's left and right are prepared to challenge proposals in the criminal justice bill to move on, fine or jail rough sleepers. Under proposals due to be voted on by MPs before the general election, ministers intend to give police the powers to fine or move on nuisance rough sleepers. Now, I wonder what they'll decide is the delineating factor for what counts as being a nuisance rough sleeper. And again, what's crazy as well is that putting people in prison would literally be more expensive than just building homes for them and putting them in the homes. It would literally cost less for us to do it. But again, it goes back to this kind of utility versus virtue ethic stuff that I talked about on yesterday's stream, where if you give people houses because they're homeless, you'll get all of these virtue ethicists going, oh, but they don't work for it. Or I bought my house myself. I pay for my house. How dare them give something they've not worked hard for? And I'm like, is it cheaper to give them the house or to put them in prison? Is it better for society if they're on the streets or off the streets? Do you prefer living in a country that's full of homeless people or not? Which of those is more important to you? All of those other things that are going to get better by reducing the homelessness population? Or your feels about somebody maybe getting something that you feel they don't personally deserve? Like, that's a question that you should ask these people, because 90% of the time they will have to come around and say, well, actually, maybe you're right about this. Maybe that's less important than whether or not I have the feel bads about it. Because again, it would literally save the government money to just build houses and put them in the housing. But of course, that's not cruel enough. And half the time with Conservatives, the cruelty is the point. It's why, as has been pointed out in chat, you get anti-homeless architecture. You get the benches with the extra handles in the middle so homeless people can't sleep over them. You get the benches where they will take out seats so that homeless people can't sleep on them. Well, the anti-homeless architecture really is like the absolute nadir of society, and anybody who has ever proposed them in any council meeting ever is literally less than human to me, and I hope for the worst for them. And again, like trying to fine the homeless, what money are they going to have to pay the fine? I guess it's a way of saying they can't pay the fine, so slamming them in the slammer. The literal goal of society is to make things better. If everyone had to have as hard as those which went before, we would never progress ever. You'd think that would be the case, Big Al, but a lot of people don't seem to disagree with you on that one. And of course, trying to imprison homeless people at a time when the prisons are literally full. The prisons are literally full, so much so that people are going unsentenced. Dangerous criminals are being unsentenced because we just didn't bother engaging in capital investment in our prison system for 14 years because austerity. Like, even the things that the rightoids thought the state should do, like the criminal justice system, prisons, the police, all of these things still got cut back on. All these things that the rightoids still think the state should do also got cut back on by George Osborne. And here we are. This is the point where we're at, where dangerous criminals not getting put into prison because there's not enough space, but they want to be even more draconian to put homeless people in prison at a greater cost to the state than if we just gave them houses. It just shows you a little glimpse into the Conservative psyche on what they believe is practical, quote unquote. Yeah. The move has infuriated dozens of Tory MPs on both the left and right of the party, who have warned whips they will vote against the measures in the criminal justice bill, which is currently going through the House of Commons. On Sunday, senior government sources said they had paused the legislation, always a good sign, while ministers negotiated with rebels. More than 40 Tory MPs, including most of the One Nation group of moderate Tories, have made it clear they would vote against the bill. Like, imagine being so awful, so rancid as a Conservative that like huge swathes of your party think that you're being too awful. Says something, doesn't it? All these people vote through all the austerity measures that caused the homelessness crisis, but fining the people who we've made homeless due to our shit policy, that's a bridge too far. That's a bridge too far, chat. The government is panicking about the scale of the rebellion because they know if it gets pushed to a vote they will lose, said one of those involved in the debate. But we are not backing down or giving way. The ball is in the government's court. They need to listen to, or it will be desperate for them. The bill, which was announced by former Home Secretary and Demon, Suella Braverman, would give police and local authorities powers against nuisance rough sleeping in England and Wales. Rough sleepers could be moved on, fined up to £2,500 or jailed. Like, if you'd think if they had 2.5k on hand, they probably wouldn't be homeless. Again, these people, I mean, Sulla Braverman, when she announced this bill, as is pointed out in this little quote here, said that homelessness was a lifestyle choice. They can't even conceive of the idea that someone would just have no money. Or, well, if they do the nuisances, we'll just fine them to £2,500. I'm sure they've got it somewhere. If they've just chosen to be on the street just to save money, I guess. Probably why they just got 2.5 grand on file. Not going to be a problem, is it? It's not going to be an issue. Not an issue at all. But critics say the bill is so broadly drawn that someone could be considered a nuisance merely for sleeping in a doorway, having an excessive smell, or looking as though they might intend to sleep rough. They claim that if the current proposals stand, the bill would punish people for simply being homeless. Yeah, that's literally it. I mean, the sleeping in the doorway stuff is exactly something that Sulla Braverman was kind of very specific about when she was talking about what the kind of changes that she was looking to make to the bill. Because she was like, well, it's going to hurt local business owners because people are sleeping in their doorways for their shop, and that's going to be bad for business. And I'm just like, yeah, fix the homelessness crisis then. That's your fault. Your crappy housing policy, your crappy labour market policy, your crappy welfare policy, your crappy council housing policy is all to blame for all of these homelessness crises right now. Right? Homelessness massively increased over the last 14 years. You are to blame. It's bankrupting councils who now can't have enough money from central government because you're not going to give them the extra money to be able to increase the amount that they can deal with homelessness provision and temporary accommodation. But yeah, it's going to affect local businesses. Weird how you just let the state stop doing things, expecting the private sector to do some social utility when they only care about profit. Of course, they're not going to involve themselves. And suddenly, the state not doing things has all these negative impacts on the economy that have to be paid for threefold when you actually get round to solving the gigantic problem because of austerity. It's almost like it's a gigantic false economy that never fucking works. Weird, that, innit? This was a discussion in Dickensian times. How have we not sorted this out yet? Because people are monsters. They didn't need to be. We have made them thus.
I'm actually very right-wing, and I loved it.
Wow, okay. I've only just read this bit. This just shows you just how far that Suella Braverman has gone with her changes to the bill. Even the former Tory leader, Ian Duncan Smith, legally allowed to call this man Tory scum. The butcher himself, the man who essentially ruined the lives of millions of disabled people as the head of the DWP under David Cameron. A nasty piece of work. And former Deputy Prime Minister Damien Green are among Conservative MPs who have signed amendments that would remove the new police powers. Even Ian Duncan Smith, the butcher himself, thinks the current government is going too far. You couldn't make it up. You literally couldn't make it up. The campaign is being coordinated by Rob Blackman, Joint Secretary of the Conservative Backbench 1922 Committee. A lot of colleagues believe that the bill as it stands is completely unacceptable because it would have the effect of criminalising people who have no choice but to live on the streets, Blackman said. We are urging ministers to think again. Well, no, it's just a lifestyle choice though, isn't it? It's just a lifestyle choice. Again, it's so very funny because, they're not wrong to say that these things are bad and the policies are bad. It's just, the problems are bad, but their causes are very, very good apparently. We'll happily vote for and support austerity-cutting council budgets. We'll happily vote for the selling off of social housing under right to buy. We'll happily vote for all of these things that cause all these problems. But people, the ways people are trying to solve these problems and the problems themselves, they're really bad. But we won't ever fight things from first principles, shall we? Damien Green said he supported Blackman's amendment because it represented a practical way forward to help people off the streets, rather than criminalising them, while other MPs attack the government's heavy-handed approach. Just, build houses, put them in the houses, okay? Not difficult. People are not homeless because they want to be, said one. These plans are even worse than the Vagrancy Act that was first introduced after the Napoleonic Wars that it is supposed to be replacing. I mean, if you would say to me, the current Conservative Party are just kind of relics of the kind of people who were in power during the Napoleonic Wars, I would say yes, that's definitely an analogy that one could make. The bill is seen as a critical part of the Tory strategy to present the party as tough on crime before the next election. But the thing is that I think Labour are still slightly winning in national polling on being tough on crime, but I don't think that any particular party who, in their austerity years, cut 10,000 police officers, we still have fewer police officers per capita than we did in 2010, can ever say they care about the criminal justice system, barristers going on strike, prisons full, no capital investment, trying to hire a bunch of barristers to do asylum cases because it's politically convenient for you when there's a massive backlog of cases awaiting trial. Just a ridiculous government full of idiots, really and truly. As well as new laws on begging, the bill would expand police powers to test suspects for drugs on arrest and enter premises to search for stolen goods such as mobile phones. Not draconian at all, to just break and enter, I guess. It will also give probation officers the power to administer lie tests to sex offenders and terrorists after they're released from prison and increase sentences for some offenders. The broad nature of the bill has allowed MPs to tack on more amendments, including proposals to decriminalise all abortions and to ban so-called conversion therapy. Again, the Times always got to shoehorn their transphobia into every single article. Every single fucking article with the Times, they have to get in their transphobic angle. Essentially, they call it so-called conversion therapy because they think that trans people are conversion therapy. We think that we're doing conversion therapy on gay people. And so banning conversion therapy is essentially banning people from gender explorative therapy, which is just conversion therapy. Jesus Christ, hate the Times. Ministers are concerned that the bill will be overshadowed by such controversies, including the homelessness debate. There is a reason why the bill hasn't seen the light of day yet, said one. There are a lot of things we need to try and fix. Polly Neat, Chief Executive of the charity shelter, said, Parliament must not enact this legislation. Instead of punishing people for being homeless, politicians should be trying to prevent them from ending up on the streets. Very true. Everyone at risk of sleeping rough should have the right to suitable emergency accommodation, and to end homelessness for good, we must invest in genuinely affordable social homes. We need 90,000 a year. Weird how the charity that deals with homelessness has a practical solution to this, and the Conservative Party has a bunch of idiot ideologues who want to be cruel for the sake of being cruel. Weird how that works out. Although actually I guess that charity, like Shelter, are just like anti-landlord extremists, according to that one woman from that politics show Vox Pop that we watched, who hate that charities are attacking landlords for providing housing, despite building none themselves. Hey-ho, but there you go. Even Ian Duncan Smith thinks Swallow Braverman went too far. Says a lot. Hey there, if you enjoyed the video, make sure that you like and leave a comment. That helps the video out in the algorithm. If you subscribe and ring the bell, it'll let you know when I go live. I stream every day on YouTube and Twitch. You can also follow all of my socials down in the description. And if you want to support me in a more financial manner, there's a join button for membership to just 99p to be a member on YouTube, as well as a Patreon, and there's some merch there as well. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.